So we're here at the first day of the World Forum for Democracy. My name is Tomas, I'm from Argentina.
I'm Dinara from Kazakhstan.
And I'm Leisan.
Great. Do you guys want to share your experiences, how you have been experiencing this first day?
To be honest, yes, I quite like today. Especially I like the idea of Bulgarian children dancing in front of us. I really appreciated them for doing so because I think it reflects the idea of democracy and education, of course, because I think it's not only them kind of having an education of their own culture,
right.
And it's also they're spreading this education to us, and I felt I have been educated by this
right.
dance as well because I have never seen anything like that in my entire life before, and for me seeing something like this was absolutely amazing.
Right, of course.
I thought it was just like a brilliant idea to link this to the dance during the World Forum for Democracy.
Yeah, I agree with Leisan, and I think that art dances are very important in education. So we started off with the South American choir, and then we had a Bulgarian dance, and it was all very exciting and energetic, and I really liked it. But what about the plenary sessions themselves? They were really informative. There are people from different backgrounds, from different places, and they share their stories. But what was a little bit disturbing that people took too long to ask their questions. Yeah, they start with a story, and you kind of don't know what is the question. So
yeah, but I think that talks about the environment is like people want to share in their experiences, and they're so different, right?
Yeah, I understand that, but at the same time, it's like it's not very cool for other people because it's taking too long.
Well, you know that these experiences have been like very innovative experiences. Like they said, this democratic school, it was very different, like than we are usually used to, right? What do you guys think about this?
Yeah. I read about this school, democratic school in Israel, and I think this experience is amazing, but I'm also concerned with the cultural context because you can't take this and apply it everywhere, just like he said. And there are also like some problems. The school costs $1,200 to go, so it's kind of restricting for low-income families. They can't afford. So it's kind of not really democratic, so I have issues with that.
And I was able to ask the question during the plenary session in terms of the international perspective to education, and I was really glad to receive the answer that they actually do implement some sort of international education in the classroom, because as he explained, they're kind of using this idea of video conference to allow the children to learn from others, like just from across the globe, and basically it doesn't cost anything, and you're also surrounded by people who are very interested in the same concept of international learning. So I guess this is the place where like kind of a very holistic education takes place. Yes, however, the idea of that it costs so much money would be restrictive for some people. I'm sure they might have some scholarships. Do they not?
I think they do, but still it's very restrictive, I think.
Do you guys see this being implemented in your home countries? Do you think this would work? Maybe there would be a cultural barrier there?
Yeah, I think that it could be implemented, but it's also would be very hard because the Ministry of Education in our country has a very tight control of all the education activities and all the institutions. So I think there should be a very hard. But at the same time, like in Israel, I don't think it was so smooth. So they had a hard time in the beginning, but still it worked. So I think it's really possible.
Great.
And I think, because I'm originally from Russia, I think it would perfectly work, and especially with the idea that we have so many different ethnicities and nationalities, like just living together. So I guess wherever you would go, this idea would be perfectly implemented and fitted into the society. Just because, like, wherever you go, people are, I think, open-minded, and they'll be like absolutely glad to kind of join. But the idea of cost, this is the potential problem that I think they should like address. How to either reduce the cost or provide more scholarships.
Right.
And same with Kazakhstan, we have like more than 120 ethnicities living in our country, so it's very important to have a democratic education and to be inclusive and tolerant to other ethnicities.
I'm Artyom, I'm moderator. Can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Sebastian, I'm from Colombia.
I'm Susan, I'm from the Netherlands.
Okay. The first question I wanted to ask is, how do you find the first day of World Forum for Democracy?
Okay, I think this experience has been really enriching because we got the opportunity to listen to many lectures to many, like let's say, people who has some experience on education field and also democracy. Even though it has been really enriching, also has raised and it has been the opportunity to raise some questions, to question actually what is democracy, what is education, what is equality, the approaches to get democracy, to see education, and how actually the institutions, the global institutions see democracy, see democracy and education, how from our experiences, from our perspective, can we interact with that, change many things, and improve others.
Yeah. And you? Do you think some?
Well, what is different for me in this experience, in this conference, than, for example, in more scientific conferences, is that we really bring together a lot of people from civil society who have all sorts of different experiences with democracy and with education. And I think it makes the conversation a lot more valuable because we can really use these concrete experiences as resources, as sources of knowledge, and that also gives a lot of young people the opportunity to come here and to join the conversation because they have their own experiences in youth organizations and in education, which makes the conversation a lot more valuable, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Gathering together is really great from different backgrounds. So, what was the most interesting thing during the forum for you?
Okay, today is the first day, so we haven't seen many things. But from now, there was an experience. There was an experience that was brought from Israel about education, about democratic education, how it's a different way of understanding and reproducing actually some values of democracy, but not by the same institutions, but building up different institutions and different concepts and practices of democracy within with children and young people, and actually it gets better results. I think this is one of the things that I really like the most. The other thing is sharing knowledges and experiences with other people. I think this is one of the most enriching, as you say, moments of this forum. So let's see what's going to happen actually, with the labs and everything.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying, that one of the most interesting things that is happening here, I think, is that for such a long time we have been doing education in a certain way, and we've really been focusing on knowledge and skills, and I think now we have come to a moment in history where we realize that knowledge may not be enough. We may know a lot about democracy and still be very bad at it. And so all these initiatives that are working on making democracy a thing in the classroom that you don't learn about but learn through, almost like it's learning by experience, by experimenting as well, by making mistakes, by playing almost with this thing called democracy and finding out what it is, and finding ways of doing that. Because who are we to tell children what democracy is? I think children have many different talents and skills to find out what democracy is by themselves and maybe find ways to do it better than we've done it so far. So I'm very excited about all the initiatives that are talking about school governance and education being really democratic more than about democracy.
Yeah, I think it's really great to explore what is democracy, what is equality and inequality as well.
I'm Astrid. I'm a delegate, a young ambassador of the youth delegation.
And you?
My name is Saja. I'm from Palestine, and we are from the youth delegates.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to ask you some questions about today's conference. So, how you felt about? Did you learn something? What do you expect and what did you learn?
Okay, well, I think that it's very important to hear people like have the decision makers talking about education and what does it mean for democracy, but also have like this problem. How can we build a democracy with the education system we have, and how can we improve the people's life without noticing that the role of economy and society in democracy? Because we're just talking here about changing education, but we're not talking about the system that education is made for. Because economics is making that education one way, and it's not being okay for everyone. Inequality is still there, and we don't have democracy in many countries all over the world.
What about you?
Yeah. I feel like kind of our voices were heard, kind of. We had the space. But the thing is that I want to elaborate on my colleagues, because I totally agree with her. When we talk about democracy and education, and we don't consider less privileged people who are not equal to others, like it's taking place only for a group of people and ignoring the rest on the name of a global world where are people who are unequal, and it's like it doesn't address them. It does address people who have all their rights achieved, or most all of their rights, but there are people who still didn't achieve the right to go to education, or they don't have access to education.
And what do you think about the first plenary? What do you expect for your country to work these projects there?
Well, I think that the plenary that we have with these two experts, one of theory and the other one that told us his experience in education, it's that maybe with that background, that information, many countries all over the world can try to improve on education systems, but it's still the problem there. We just don't need to improve education. We need to evaluate why education is like that, because we're just saying, oh, we can, I don't know, improve education by changing curriculums or something like that, but it's not enough, because it's all about all the system that we are fighting for.
And what do you think is the most important person, or who is in charge of the education programs in each country?
Generally, it's a system. I think it's more than a person, because we are run by a system since decades, and to change that system, it needs lots of efforts from everyone, not one person.
Do you think that the people from other countries are better in their system of education, or they are equal, they are bad, they are good? What do you think about that?
Well, speaking of a global experience, I think that is very visible that many countries don't have good education, they are unequal. I mean, you cannot see just Europe reality, you have to see the reality of Africa, of America, and we are not having democracies, we are not having a system of education that is functioning also. So it's like we're not equal, and we need to find ways to improve education, to change the economic system, to change societies, and that's a big, big way, and I think that we as young people have that to do. It's our homework.
And do you have any ideas of what we can make to implement programs for education in the most poorest countries?
Ideas. For example, we have to educate to build the capacity of people who are there, so they can be teachers by themselves. By this, you need to work both on human resources and to include them in the process they want to learn. Do you want to learn in this way or in another way? The most important thing is the learning itself.
What do you think about the Learning Democracy program? The school democracy? democracy school program?
Oh, well, I think that is a great experience because considers like the cultural background and also considers to put in work democratic systems to decide what students want to learn with teachers. So that's very important because make us make the kids, the students feel that they are part of something and they can have decisions. So it's very, very important. I think that is a great system, but it needs to include the knowledge of the country. I mean the culture.
And in the conference methodology, what do you change or what do you want to complement or what do you want to add to this?
We would like to see more participants from other countries, like from South Africa, the very marginalized areas, and plans to be achieved. And we want, like in that forum, we are not subject to what is being told, like to be included, that our voice in education be included based on either the youth voices, how education would we want it to be, and we raise it together and we give it to them, and not them talking to us in a panel and we just sitting there.
And why do you think the young voices is very important to be heard?
Because they are the leaders of the future. So we are the young are going to lead the country tomorrow, and they are the one who know how to decide for themselves, because each one has his context, and as a young context is different from an expert or an old man context who lived in a previous era, and we have our own context living in this area. So we want we have some point of views that were not covered or perceived by others, and it felt by us, not by them.
Can you tell us a little bit about the education system in your country?
Well, in my country, Peru, we have a very bad education system that make people fight for a grade. People don't learn what they need to go to society, to be a good citizen, to have a good work. They are just learning things to become a worker man and not to have success in life in other aspects. Because many people is like trapped in a role and not one, and they cannot be what they want to be in reality.
And you?
For us, it's more informational system of education. We don't have students' life skills to be developed. We don't have practical things. We don't have skills like how to make some things, how to experience things. I would like to see more practical experiments, more inclusion of students, not as passive, but also as main factor of education.
Okay, and now about the education. Do you think it's very important for democracy or it's not very important at all?
Of course it is important, but we need to consider that there's many things that contribute to democracy, that build democracy, not just education. So we need a lot of things that needs to be improved in education, but also we need to work on our systems, not just society by non-formal education, but to working like a fair economy, because economy is not fair, and that's why many people is outside the system. They cannot study, they cannot have a good work, they are living in the streets, so that's like the main problem. There's people that is not considered for the system, so what we're going to do with them?